What's up, Internet? My name's Nerdy.
And I'm Clarose.
And we have seen episode 1 of season 3 of The Wheel of Time.
Yep.
But we're not going to share that reaction, obviously, until the episode is actually out.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons. It's not out yet. And so that would be unfair to Amazon Prime. And we're grateful to them for putting money behind fantasy shows because we love fantasy.
We do.
And we've seen it. So let's review it. Yeah. This will be a spoiler review for season 1 and 2. No spoilers for books or for the episode.
Yeah. We're just going to talk about our general thoughts walking away from it without any spoilers or specifics.
But we might talk about things that have happened earlier in the show. Yeah.
I feel like if you watched this video without having seen season 1 or 2, that would be such an odd thing. But yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to set up exactly what, we won't talk about the books and we're not going to talk about the actual episode plot, just our feelings on it. Clarose, where do you want to start?
I want to start by saying I was fairly happy overall with this. If you've watched our content on the show, you know that it's kind of been a rocky journey. There have been ups and downs, and we came to season 3 being like, all right, we're going to give this a watch, and if we don't like it, we won't make content about it, right?
Yeah.
We're not interested in putting out negativity for no reason, and so
if it's only negativity,
yeah. So part of me was like, we might watch this and we may never talk about it. We might not put out a reaction. We might not do any of that. And while I don't think the episode was perfect, was the most amazing thing ever, yeah. I feel fairly positive about it overall. There's a lot of things about it that I either liked or am interested to know more about and excited to see what they do in the rest of the season and the rest of the show.
Yeah, I think that the lead up to this season has been a lot of talk of people saying this is the season where the Wheel of Time show is going to start leaning more heavily on the movies. On the books.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, this episode says no, we're not going to do that. We're doing our own thing.
Yeah.
This is not the books. These are not the characters from the books. And I'm not saying this to be critical. I'm saying that because now that thought that season 3 was going to lean really well into what happens in my favorite one of my favorite fantasy novels of all time, but my favorite book of this series certainly. In Shadow Rising, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm actually feel better about moving forward with the rest of the season.
Yeah, if we're able to let go of a bit of expectation.
Yes.
Okay, this is not the books. This is not the books, and so what?
And it's still not going to be.
No, and it's not going to be. It's not going to be. I feel like they have made that very clear, and so we're kind of able to let that go and say, okay, then what is this turning of the wheel? What is this vision for this show? And what makes it unique, and what does it have to say?
And I think that consistently what we've said across the first 2 seasons is that the strength of the show is casting. And I still think that is true. I think the acting across the board in the episode is really strong. There's some really incredible scenes, both from people who have been part of the cast since the beginning, with Swan and Moraine, and also newcomers in season 2. I don't think there's any new characters in this episode. No, I think that...
The very, 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 very end.
Oh, in the stinger?
The stinger?
Last...
Oh, yes, the very... Like the final 2 minutes.
Yeah, there is a scene to, set up the season, but for the majority of this episode takes place on one day, and it is kind of...
we met new sisters in the White Tower. They did release that scene that you can watch separately. So technically... Do
any of them have a line? Oh, Jane. Yeah, Jane.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah.
So that was in the 13 minutes. It's already dropped, that first scene.
Yeah. But mostly returning actors and actresses. And I think that the scenes are really good on an individual level. I think there's a lot of great dialogue.
The dialogue, I think, it was stellar across the board. Honestly, well done, because that's been a criticism of ours in the past sometimes.
And so, there's some action that isn't in that 13-minute thing. I thought was well choreographed, and well shot, and well edited. Surprisingly well edited for the show. I really enjoyed it. I thought it portrayed the scene very well. I thought the tension of that scene was handled really well.
Yeah.
Where I'm a little less hot on the show than you are is I think that this episode has a real whiff on tone in paying off what it sets up.
Well, and it is my biggest criticism of this episode in particular as well, is that there are events that happen in this episode that feel like they should affect scenes afterwards in a much more prevalent way than they do. And so, the tone of the episode is a little bit odd.
Yes.
Because you're like, wait, something just happened, and people are kind of acting like it did it. Like no one is having a reaction to it in the way that I would have expected.
Yeah, and so I think that in some ways it is consistent with what this show has always done, which is that there are great moments. There is great casting. There is great sound design. There's great physical motion. The cinematography this episode is really excellent. There's a lot of use of much dimmer lighting, but it is very visible. It doesn't look like modern kind of movies sometimes do, where it's night and you're like dark. Straight up can't see.
Yeah.
When they are in dark places, you can really take in the images quite well. And so I think that from the way the show is shot, really exceptional. Sound design, all that stuff is very good. I think that a lot of these scenes feel like they were written in bubbles. And so the scenes on their own are good.
Mm-hmm.
I think that those bubbles are not the same episode. And I do worry a little bit about the scene, or this episode, the season as a whole, because I do think one of the things that has let me down with The Wheel of Time as a show has been that by the end of the season, those inconsistent things kind of add up to the season as a whole not standing on its own.
Yeah, I think they need to work a little bit on cohesiveness.
In season 2, we loved episodes 4, 5, 6. We were like, oh shit, they've hit their stride.
Yeah.
And then I felt like the end of that season landed with a real thud for me.
Mm-hmm.
And while this is a good start to a season, I would not say it's a great start to a season.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I'm walking away feeling fairly positive.
Yes.
For the most part. Definitely have some questions, but that's kind of just, it is the episode 1. And so, again, I am looking forward to seeing what they do with the things that they have set up here. And I feel like people's reaction to this episode is going to be a little bit polarizing because, like you said,
mm-hmm.
I feel like they have really been like, we're not doing the books. And, some people, that's not what they want from the show. That's absolutely valid. You can, those books exist. You can absolutely go give those a read if that is the world and the story that you want to immerse yourself in. But I don't think it's this show.
I would say, and this is not a comment on quality at all.
Okay.
But this is about as much an adaptation of The Wheel of Time as Aragon is an adaptation of Aragon. In terms of, just not quite getting it, This series isn't doing The Wheel of Time.
Interesting.
Thematically, or from this series reminds me of adaptations from the early 2000s, when the complaint was that your favorite book would get bought, and then you would go see it in a theater, and you would be like, that's not the book that I love.
Yeah.
The character names are right. But none of this happens. And none of the characters behave like this. And these aren't the relationships that anybody has.
Yeah.
These aren't the themes of the book that I read.
The Wheel of Time makes better choices than the Aragon movie did.
Oh, no. Again, not a quality thing.
Yeah. I'm trying to... you know how I feel about that movie. And so I'm trying to kind of, come to terms with that comparison.
I'm trying to think of another adaptation that's like it, though, where there's good ones, right? Where you're like, oh yeah, Stephen King famously hates the adaptation of The Shining.
Right.
And The Shining is an all-time movie, right? And it's fantastic.
It is definitely different.
But if what you were hoping for was an adaptation of Robert Jordan's writing in The Wheel of Time, this show does not deliver that.
Sure.
This show is, if someone read The Wheel of Time and then went and wrote their fan fiction about it. And I'm not saying that to be negative. I'm not saying that as a criticism of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm saying that as a, like, the themes of this show are fundamentally different.
Sure.
The gender gaps in the show don't exist. The, like, classic culture of, or you know, the patriarchal sort of way in which women are oppressed for their bodies, not in this show at all. Right? Like, there's a lot of things about the way in which Robert Jordan crafted the world that he did that are just simply not present.
Right.
On a world building level, on a thematic level, on an individual character level. And the show, I mean, just look at Min, you know, that in the first 2 seasons, that character is not in the books anywhere. That character doesn't exist. But and so for me, I am actually in a better place having seen season 3, episode 1 now, and not, because I've been like excited for them to veer back onto the tracks
of the books.
Yes, I have been excited for that. They're not going to do that.
They're not doing that.
And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
This episode helped me let go of that expectation, and I think that I will be able to enjoy the show more moving forward, now that I'm not at all waiting for it to be an adaptation of The Wheel of Time. I'm not gonna wait for that. I'm not gonna wait for moments I love. They're not gonna happen. And if they do, it's not gonna be with the characters that I loved.
Yeah, it's gonna be its own version. It's gonna be a different thing, and
these characters aren't bad. It's not that they're bad. It's just that they aren't Robert Jordan's creations.
No, I definitely feel excited to see how this show develops into its own thing. Right? It's making its own choices, and I want to see where it takes them.
Yeah. And honestly, like, maybe that is better for it in the long run, because it's not going to have the runway to make the entirety of The Wheel of Time. Right?
I mean, yeah, that's tough. That's tough.
They might only get 2 more seasons. And how does this show end well in 2 more seasons?
Yeah.
Right? Like, the idea that they're going to still be making the show in 2036.
Hey, Criminal Minds is still going.
But even if they only go 5, even if we only get 8 seasons, you would have to cut so much of the books.
I know, yeah.
And
I know exactly what you're saying.
Still 10 more years of filmmaking.
Yeah, 100%.
Who knows if Amazon is a thing in 10... Like, I think it will be, but, like,
Look, if there's anything we know, it's that our corporate overlords will still be here in 10 years.
If they were making a season every year, I would believe that we were going to get all 8. At every 2 years, I just don't buy that the economics of television will allow them 5 more seasons.
Yeah. It's possible.
The generation of people watching TV is going to be kids who are born after the first season of the show premiered.
Yeah.
Those kids are going to be 16, right? And so there's just because of how slowly they're producing seasons, I think they get 2 more. Tops. Not
it's tough
for quality reasons.
It's tough to know. Because, you know, Amazon will also never really release real numbers that mean anything.
True.
And we'll actually never know what goes into this and what comes out of it and what they see and how it benefits them. They're just we don't get to know that shit anymore.
Yeah.
We just
all right.
Get to see it.
Out of 10, what would you give the episode?
Oh, interesting. I think the problem is that the biggest criticism I have of the episode is really underlying through the entire episode.
Yes.
And that makes it tough. Like, I think, like,
because it impacts good things.
Yeah.
And it makes them
there's so many
feel like they shouldn't be good. Yeah, I
There's
understand.
so many, like, specific things that I'm like, God, I really enjoyed this episode. And so I feel like maybe like a 7 or a 7.5 out of 10. Yeah, I feel like that somewhere in that realm is fair, because there is enough there that I did enjoy, especially carried by incredible performances. So, yeah.
I would give it a 6. It would be just on the other side of fresh on a Rotten Tomatoes review for me.
All right.
It is good enough. It's better as an episode 3 than it is as an episode 1. And I understand why they put that 11 minutes out early. I'm hopeful that episode 2 on Tuesday moves things faster, and that we just pick up this pace, because we only have 8 episodes, and as good as the conversations were, we talked about a lot of stuff, and I'm excited for the show to really dig in its heels in the sand of the IO waste. I think that's in all the trailers, so I don't feel bad saying that.
We know we're going there this season. Like,
you know, I really hope that we get through a lot of that quickly, because it was a good start that could be a great season. It wasn't an amazing start to me.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. If you like the video, like, subscribe to the channel. If you don't, hit the dislike button. Leave me comments down below because the algorithm god is hungry and we must feed her. This episode, that algorithm goddess is... You know who I'm going to give it to?
Yeah.
If it's okay?
No, yeah.
If I can?
Uh-huh.
Avienda.
Delightful.
Delightful.
I love her.
Yeah, it's a great performance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You'll see what I mean on Wednesday. Or you've probably already seen it. You're a Wheel of Time fan, right? You were at the Global... Well, actually, no. It only played... There's a lot of people who were, like, had work and stuff. So if you haven't seen it, you're still a Wheel of Time fan. I don't want to judge you for, like, you know...
How dare you not call in sick to work so that you could watch the premiere of episode 1 of season 3
Or
of
if you, like, live in Japan and it was at, like, 2 o'clock in the morning, you're like, I'll wait till Wednesday.
Yeah, fair.
All right. Follow us on the internet. I'm at Nerdy Nightly.
I'm at Claris Polaris.
Do something nerdy tonight.
Bye.
Bye.